Hello, welcome back. I've been away for a couple of months because there's been a lot of personal stuff going on in my life. I've moved to a different city, so I haven't had enough time to do these videos. But here I am. And today I wanted to talk about something that actually came up from a lot of conversations that I've had with different people from different backgrounds and different points of view throughout this time. And it gave me a perspective about a topic that I think it's really important now in this polarized times, these fragmented times. And that is the fact that nothing and nobody is safe from evil. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't want to waste a lot of time defining evil because it's a super complex philosophical topic. But for the purposes of this conversation, let's just say that evil is any act that brings pain, suffering, or harm to others and oneself. And evil can also be, let's say, understood in the sense of there's the moral evil, which would be the exterior aspect of evil when we do harm to others, or let's say our societies, and the evil from the heart, which is more of an internal aspect of evil, like the things that we feel and think that come from an immoral point of view. Now, why do I think it's important to talk about evil? Because I've realized that people in times like these, when we have clear teams, when we've let's say entrenched ourselves in specific groups, we somewhat become blinded to our allegiance to those groups and stop understanding that no message, practice, ideology, belief system is safe or protected from being used for nefarious purposes. And the way that I can explain this is, and I've talked about this before, language is a symbolic system that we've created in order to define and understand the immanent world, the world outside of language, outside of thoughts. And for the most part, it's the best invention that we've ever created or discovered. But it has its limitations because language is not reality. So the way that language is constructed and used can warp, distort, or bend reality to a specific purpose. And people that understand this can use it for good or can use it for evil. So if you want to bring about truth and reason to the world, and unity to the world, then you're using language for those purposes. If you want to use it to advance your own agenda, regardless of the fact that you may be harming others or intentionally wanting to harm others, then you're using it for evil. Now, when we think about how do you do that, normally people think like this. Let's say that you meet a racist person and you're a person of color or an immigrant, and this person attacks you outright and just says, I don't like you because of your skin color, I don't like you because of the way that you look, or I think that the people from your country are lesser than the people from my country, right? So that attack, let's say that you consider it an evil point of view, because it says that that I can treat you badly, I can do you harm just because I think that what I say is right. And it's a clear example of something that people can rally against, because if a person says that, they're, let's say, revealing their point of view, and this point of view is immoral because it's basically saying that because of some aleatory non-individual markers that you have as a person, then you are categorized as something less than what they perceive themselves as. That's easy to discern. See, like a racist person being racist, it's easy to discern why that's bad. A greedy person being greedy outright is easy to discern why he's being greedy and he's harming others if he's actually doing that, right? But it's more complex than that. Let's say that I'm going to use the movie The Lord of the Rings. In the movie The Lord of the Rings, there is this concept called Manichaeism, which comes from the Manichaean philosophy. The idea is that evil and good are clearly defined and delineated. So evil is like darkness and good is light. Like the grays and the complexities of life are simpled down in order to explain a point of view. But we can also lie, bend the truth, we can be duplicitous, we can be hypocritical, and the way that we do that normally is through language. We can say something and do the opposite. We can promise something and never do that. Now, why is this important? Because when we find certain things that we think are good, sometimes we think that they are good in themselves, but when we enter the social sphere, when an ideology, a belief system, a religion, a political point of view, an economical practice, whatever it is, enters into the social sphere in terms of conversations and language, they become empty label boxes that are filled with the actions that we put into them. So let's say that I'm a Christian. You can be a very good Christian person with using your belief system, or you can use Christianity to cover up the evil that you want to commit. And history has proven that over and over again. In the name of God, the worst acts of and atrocities have been committed. And this brings the conversation to the topic of conscious and unconscious evil, which means when somebody does evil because they are evil, like in the movie The Lord of the Rings. I'm an evil person, I want to harm and bring pain to people and destroy because that's what I am. It's as simple as that. That's clear and that's intentional. But the other side is the worst one, or the most dangerous one, which is evil committed in the name of good. Because we know that the worst crimes are not committed by evil people that are saying it outright, because that's easy to understand and rally against. The worst acts are committed by people and groups of people that claim to be doing evil things in the name of good. So yet again, for example, the Catholic Church has done horrendous things in the name of good. But also Buddhist sects have burned people, have killed tribes in the name of good, in the name of something better. And normally we try to find, as human beings, something that is, let's say, uncorrupted, like a model that we can grab onto and say this is uncorrupted. But sadly enough, nothing is uncorrupted, because yet again, those empty label boxes that can only be filled with the actions will define what we're actually doing. And what I mean by that is, let's say Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhism is a practice that technically is completely nullifying language in order to be absolutely present in the immanent world. And technically that's, let's say, one of the most elegant philosophical practices that a person can follow. But it has been used for terrible crimes, because you can warp that idea into a justification or a rationalization of something truly evil. Scientology is let's say, a closer example. There's hundreds and hundreds of testimonies of people that explain how they were abused verbally, psychologically, physically, and that they rationalized and justified those evil acts because the model that they were in, like the ideological model that they were immersed in, made them think that those evil acts, those immoral acts, those hateful acts were actually good, because there was, let's say, a linguistic construct that warped the reality in order to justify. An abusive relationship also works like that. The people that is like the idea of I'm hitting you because I love you, and then the person that's being abused rationalizes that and says, no, he loves me, that's why he hurts me. And it's crazy, but our minds are so malleable through language that we can lose ourselves or become blind by let's say a linguistic construct that is good enough or that resonates with us for whatever reason, to the point that we're blinded by that. And that leads me to talk about the fact that the best way to fight against that is to understand that nothing is safe. It doesn't matter if you think that Christianity is the best thing. It doesn't matter if you think atheism is the best thing. It doesn't matter if you think that Buddhism is the best thing, if psychedelics are the best thing, if secularism is the best. Nothing is safe, because it always comes back to us as human beings and the values and morals and the way that we act to our fellow human beings. What we do is more important than what we think and what we say and what we believe. It doesn't matter if you believe in the perfect set of ideas if you don't act according to them. And it's more important for people to have a person that will treat them with respect, that is open to understand them, that can tolerate their point of view even if they don't agree with it, that they're open to learn from the other points of view, rather than have a person that claims that they have the way for enlightenment and to bring about the utopia, like the perfect world, if they're doing it in a way that is harming others. And this has been done over and over again. And normally people that are corrupted and want to advance their own agendas use language in that way, use concepts and ideas in that way. It's easier to use messages that sound good in order to do bad than outright say, I'm a bad person, I want to do this, I am corrupted, I am hateful, I want to destroy that, I want to steal money, whatever reason it is. It's easier to use language that people approve, because let's say that I create a pyramid scheme business and I call it the human advancement and peace and love fund, something like that. See, if I call my pyramid scheme business the inclusive, peaceful, loving human being fund, our minds work psycholinguistically, meaning what we hear will give us an idea of what it should be. See, but the problem is that when we don't pay attention to what it's actually doing, we can become blinded by it. In the same way, if I say, if I create a religion and say I'm for good and for righteousness and for the moral improvement of humanity, but I start burning people because they're wicked or pagans, am I really a good person? And this brings me to today. People tend to think that, let's say, it doesn't matter where you fall. But if you think that Republicans or conservatives or religious people are dumb or ignorant just because they use those labels, then you're not actually paying attention to what they have to offer, what they're actually saying. You're immediately putting them in the box because it's easier for you to just put them in that way and say that they're evil, and to use the labels that you think are good for you and think that you're good. And it happens in the other way around too. And the problem is that as long as we use that type of thinking, we can become blinded by the people that are actually pushing their own agendas, meaning that it's just human beings trying to make the best out of the world. But there's also people that are not trying to improve the world for everybody, but just their own. And as long as we fall prey to teams, we fall under the illusion and hallucination that just because we like the message, and that because of the message we can justify evil acts being committed from both sides, then we don't have a chance in improving the world or in making it actually into a better place for everybody. And yet again, the only way to fight against that is to remember it doesn't matter what the language that anybody uses. It doesn't matter if it's the perfect string of words that creates the most beautiful sentence in order to say that this is what I'm fighting for. It's more important to pay attention to what they do, especially when they gain power or influence. And at least in my opinion, anybody that's trying to harm other people for how they look, what they believe, what they're trying to accomplish in their lives, even if it's something that you don't agree with, if you're trying to go against them in a way that's actually harming them, bringing them pain, destroying their lives, that's not a good thing. And you cannot escape that. It doesn't matter how much words you use to embellish it. So yet again, nobody's safe from evil. It's up to us, of every human being, to be able to bring the actual good, intangible, ineffable good. That's, like the whole philosophical conversation of what good and evil is. We know when we see it. We truly know when we see it. And sometimes we justify evil when we believe that the person that's committing it, we try to justify it because we think they're good, because they have all the symbols and all the image of a good person. That's not good. And the other way around too. And that's it. I'll be around. See you next time.